The evening sun dipped low over the red earth village, painting the sky with streaks of gold and fire. The compound of Chief Oladipo was alive with the sounds of chatter, chickens scratching the ground, and the smell of yam porridge simmering over firewood. Inside the courtyard, a storm was brewing. His daughter, Amina, stood trembling before him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her hands tightly folded against her chest, as though holding her very heart from breaking. The old chief's voice boomed, echoing against the mud walls. "You dare bring shame into my house, Amina? Pregnant, without a husband. You dishonor me before the elders, before the spirits, before this entire village." His wives and sons stood nearby, silent, watching the scene unfold like shadows in the evening. Amina lowered her head, her voice shaking, soft as a whisper carried by the wind. "Father, I did not mean for this to happen. I loved him. He promised me marriage. He swore he would return, but—" Chief Oladipo cut her short with a wave of his hand, his eyes blazing like embers. "Enough! Do not stain my ears with excuses. A woman who cannot guard her honor is no daughter of mine." The words struck her harder than a whip. Her knees wobbled, but she forced herself to stay standing. Her younger brother shifted uncomfortably, but he dared not speak. The chief's word was final, and in this house, his authority was law. Amina's mother stepped forward, her wrapper tied loosely around her waist, her face pale with worry. "My husband, please. She is our daughter. She has made a mistake, but should a child be cast into the night because she stumbled? Think of the shame if the village sees us drive her out." Chief Oladipo turned sharply toward her, his voice rising like a drumbeat. "The shame has already entered my house. The spirits of my fathers will not forgive me if I shelter her under my roof. She must leave. Tonight." Gasps rippled through the family. The chief pointed toward the gate with a hand that did not waver. "Amina, take your shame and go. You are no longer of my blood." Her heart clenched, 1,000 arrows piercing at once. Her mother wept, falling to her knees, clutching the chief's ankle, begging. But the chief pulled away, unmoved. Amina turned slowly, her body shaking, her unborn child pressing against her ribs as if reminding her she was not alone. She picked up a small bundle of cloth, tied with trembling fingers, containing nothing but a wrapper and a piece of bread she had hidden. The night swallowed her as she walked out of the compound, her bare feet sinking into the red earth. Crickets sang, the wind whispered. Somewhere in the darkness, a dog barked. She did not look back. Her mother's sobs followed her until even they faded. The village road stretched before her, long and uncertain, lit only by the faint silver of the moon. Her belly was heavy, her spirit heavier. For 3 days she walked, sleeping under trees, drinking from streams, clutching her unborn child as though he were already born. On the 4th day, she reached the bustling town of Ibadan, its streets alive with traders, drummers, and endless voices. There, lost among strangers, she searched for a new beginning. Time passed, seasons came and went. Her child was born under the roof of a kind widow who had found her collapsed by the roadside, her body weak, her cries of labor tearing through the night. The widow, Mama Titi, gave her shelter, food, and a place to rest. In her arms, Amina held her son, his small cry filling her with a strength she thought she had lost. She named him Iomide. My joy has arrived. Life was not easy. She pounded yam in the markets, carried water on her head, washed clothes for families who barely noticed her. But at night, she would cradle her son, whispering promises into his ears. "You will not know the shame I have known. You will rise higher than they ever imagined. You will make even your grandfather bow his head in pride." 3 years passed. Aomide grew, his eyes bright like the stars, his laughter filling the narrow rooms they shared with Mama Titi. But fate is never still. One morning, word reached the town. Chief Oladipo, the man who had cast out his daughter, had fallen ill. The once proud, unbending pillar of the village now lay frail, his body betraying him, his compound quieter than ever before. Amina heard the whispers in the marketplace. Some said the illness was a curse from the ancestors for casting away his own blood. Others said it was simply the weight of age and sorrow. Amina stood frozen, her son clutching her wrapper, looking up with wide eyes. The memories of that night returned, the pointing finger, the words that cut like knives, the gate closing behind her. Her heart battled within her. Should she return? Should she face the father who had thrown her into the cold with nothing but her unborn child? That night, she sat awake by the small oil lamp, her son asleep beside her, the room heavy with silence. Mama Titi's voice broke it gently. "Child, I know the pain in your heart, but sometimes the road we fear is the one the spirits want us to walk. You carry his blood. Whether he accepts it or not, it flows in your son too." Amina looked at Ayomide, his small chest rising and falling, his innocence untouched by the storms that shaped her. Tears welled in her eyes. At dawn, she tied her wrapper, lifted her son onto her back, and began the long journey home. The village had changed, yet remained the same. Children still played in the dust. Women still drew water from the well. Men still sat under the tree, debating the affairs of the world. But when she stepped into the compound she had once called home, silence fell. Eyes turned, whispers rose like smoke. There she stood, older, stronger, a child by her side, her face calm yet burning with the weight of years. The gate that had once closed behind her now opened before her. Her brothers stared in shock. Her stepmothers covered their mouths. Her mother dropped the calabash she was holding, her eyes wide, tears instantly spilling. And there, on a woven mat, lay Chief Oladipo, thinner, weaker, his eyes sunken but still holding the fire of a man who had once ruled with iron. He turned slowly, his gaze landing on Amina. For a moment, silence stretched, thick as smoke. Then he struggled to sit up, his voice rasping, fragile yet sharp. You dare return?" Her lips trembled, but she stood tall. "Father, I did not return for myself. I came because my son deserves to know where he comes from." She stepped aside, revealing Iomide, who peered curiously at the old man. The compound buzzed with murmurs. Her mother sobbed openly, her hands trembling as she reached for her grandson. Chief Oladipo's eyes narrowed, his chest rising heavily. His voice broke the air like a thunderclap. "This child is not of my blood." The words fell like stones, silencing the whispers. Amina's breath caught, her fingers clutching her son's hand tightly. But before she could answer, Iomide took a small step forward, his innocent eyes fixed on the old man. And with the simplicity only a child could bring, he whispered, "Grandfather?" The compound froze. Chief Oladipo's lips parted, but no words came. His hand trembled, reaching slightly before pulling back. The weight of 3 years pressed into that moment, and as the eyes of the entire family bore into them, the air was thick with something unsaid, something that could change everything. The old man's breath grew heavier, his eyes darting between his daughter and the boy. And slowly, very slowly, tears formed in the corners of his eyes, glistening against his wrinkled cheeks. The tears on Chief Oladipo's face caught the last light of the sun as silence hung over the compound. Every breath was heavy, every heartbeat louder than the rustling of the trees beyond the walls. Amina's own eyes blurred with tears, but she did not move. She stood still, her hand resting gently on Iomede's small shoulder, waiting for her father's next word. The villagers who had gathered by the gate craned their necks, whispering, their curiosity swelling like a rising tide. Chief Oladipo's lips quivered, but his pride wrestled with his heart. At last he spoke, his voice fragile but commanding enough to quiet the compound. "Take him away." "I do not know this boy." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Amina staggered, clutching her son tighter as if shielding him from an invisible blow. Her mother broke into sobs, collapsing onto the earth, beating her chest. "My husband, must you harden your heart so? Do you not see? This is your daughter. This is your blood. Look at the boy. Do you not see your own eyes staring back at you?" But Chief Oladipo turned away, his hand trembling, his body shaking with both weakness and stubbornness. Amina's heart ached, yet she refused to bow. She raised her head high, her voice steady though laced with pain. I did not come for your acceptance, Father. I came for truth. My son will not grow with lies about where he belongs. Whether you embrace him or not, he is of your blood, and one day you will have no choice but to face it. Gasps rippled through the onlookers at her boldness. The daughter once cast away now spoke with fire, unafraid of the man who once ruled her world. Iomide clung to her hand, his innocent eyes darting between the faces around him, too young to understand the storm he stood in. Chief Oladipo's chest heaved. He tried to speak, but a fit of coughing overtook him. Servants rushed to his side, fanning him, pressing water to his lips, but he pushed them away, his gaze locked on Amina. Leave, before I curse the day you were born. The words were weak, yet they stung like fire. Amina's mother cried louder, pleading, but the chief turned his face to the wall. With tears sliding silently down her cheeks, Amina took her son's hand and walked toward the gate. The villagers parted, watching as the woman once cast out walked away again, her head high, her child by her side. Of the chief's line, the crowd erupted in shouts, some in awe, some in disbelief. Chief Oladipo's face drained of color, his eyes wide, his breath catching. He clutched his chest, his pride battling with the truth that had just been laid bare before the village. Amina's tears streamed freely, her hands trembling as she ran to her son, pulling him into her arms. The boy buried his face against her, unaware of the weight of what had just happened. The elders murmured among themselves, nodding, their gazes fixed on the chief. And as the old man sat trembling on his stool, the world seemed to close in around him. The daughter he had cast away, the grandson he had denied, now both stood before him, vindicated by the spirits themselves. The silence that followed was heavier than any drumbeat. And still, the chief said nothing, his eyes dark, his lips pressed tight, as though holding back words that might shatter the last walls of his pride. The circle of elders remained still, their eyes fixed on Chief Oladipo as the truth settled over the gathering. The spirits had spoken. The boy was his blood, but the silence of the chief was heavier than iron, his lips pressed tightly, his chest rising and falling with the weight of 1,000 storms. Amina held her son close, her tears soaking into his hair, her body trembling with both relief and fear. The villagers whispered among themselves, their voices like rustling leaves carried by the wind. Some cried that the ancestors had judged fairly. Others murmured that the chief's pride would never bend. The old man raised his head slowly, his eyes glassy, his body trembling as though every bone fought against the truth. The diviner's staff struck the ground, echoing like thunder. Chief Oladipo, you cannot deny what the spirits have revealed. The boy carries your blood. Your daughter carries your name. Will you now embrace them, or will you defy the ancestors themselves? The chief's lips parted, but his voice cracked. He turned away, his chest heaving, his hand clutching the stool for balance. Finally he spoke, his voice low, broken, a shadow of the thunder that once commanded the village. Leave me, all of you. The elders exchanged troubled glances, but they obeyed. The villagers dispersed slowly, their whispers trailing into the trees, leaving the compound heavy with silence. Only Amina, her son, and her mother remained. The old man sat motionless, his eyes staring into the earth. Amina's mother approached, her hands trembling, her voice soft. My husband, the spirits have spoken. Do not let pride destroy what is left of our family. The child is innocent. Our daughter has suffered. Must she suffer forever? Chief Oladipo's shoulders shook. His breath came ragged, his eyes filled with unshed tears. At last, he lifted his gaze toward Amina, and for the first time, his voice broke like a brittle branch in the harmattan wind. Daughter, I wronged you. The words seemed to still the very air. Amina's heart clenched, her tears falling freely. He struggled to rise, his body weak, but with the help of his staff, he stood. With shaking steps, he approached her, his eyes locked on the boy who peered at him curiously, unafraid. He reached out a trembling hand, pausing just before touching the child's head. Then, with a long, shuddering breath, he rested his palm gently on Iomed's curls. My grandson. The words cracked the dam of silence. Amina fell to her knees, sobbing, her son's small arms wrapping around her neck. Her mother wept openly, lifting her hands to the sky in gratitude. For the first time in years, the chief's face softened, though streaked with tears. The walls of pride that had held him bound crumbled before the innocence of a child. That night the compound was filled with song. Women ululated, men beat drums, children danced in the dust. It was not just a reunion, it was the healing of a wound that had scarred the family for too long. The elders returned, offering blessings, declaring that the ancestors themselves had guided the chief back to his blood. By the fire, Amina sat with her son on her lap, watching her father from a distance. He was frail, his body worn by illness, but his eyes lingered on them with a gentleness she had never seen before. In the days that followed, he called for her often. He asked of her struggles in Ibadan, of the years she spent away, of how she had raised her son alone. Each word cut him with guilt, but he listened, never once turning away. And with every story she told, a piece of the wall between them crumbled. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, he called the family together. His voice was weak, but his spirit carried the weight of truth. I cast my daughter away in anger. I allowed pride to blind me, but the spirits have shown me that blood cannot be denied. This boy is of my line. From this day, he shall be named among us. The villagers who gathered nodded, their voices rising in agreement. That night, in the hut of her childhood friend Zainab, Amina lay awake. Her son slept soundly, his little hand resting on her arm, his breath soft against the quiet night. But her heart was restless. Zainab whispered beside her, her voice low so as not to wake the boy. You were brave, Amina. No woman has spoken to the chief like that, not even his wives. But tell me, will you stay, or will you return to Ibadan? Amina turned her face toward the cracked ceiling, her voice almost breaking. My heart longs to leave, yet something pulls me back. It is not forgiveness I seek, Zainab. It is justice. My father cannot die believing that his pride is worth more than blood. Zainab reached for her hand in the dark, squeezing gently. You carry the weight of two hearts now. Be careful. Pride has ruined many families. Amina closed her eyes, but sleep did not come. In the morning, the village buzzed with whispers. Some praised her courage, some cursed her boldness. Children pointed and whispered, that is the chief's lost daughter. That is the boy who called him grandfather. Everywhere she went, eyes followed her. By the well, women hushed their gossip when she approached. In the market, traders leaned close, murmuring tales of curses, spirits, and secrets. Yet Amina walked tall, her son's hand always in hers. On the third day, the chief's illness worsened. Drummers were sent to neighboring villages. Messengers carried word to distant relatives. The compound filled with elders, their faces grave, their voices low. Rituals were performed, sacrifices made, but the sickness did not lift. Some elders whispered that the ancestors were angry. Others said the chief's heart was the true cause. Late that evening, Amina was summoned by her mother. She hesitated, but when her mother's tearful face appeared at Zainab's doorway, she knew she could not refuse. Inside the chief's hut, the air was heavy with the scent of herbs and smoke. The old man lay on mats, his breathing shallow, his eyes half closed. Around him sat elders and diviners, their cowries scattered on the ground, their chants rising and falling like waves. When he opened his eyes and saw her, the murmurs hushed. He raised a trembling hand, pointing toward her. Why, did you return? Amina's throat tightened, but she stepped closer. I returned because no matter how far I go, I am still your daughter. And whether you claim him or not, Aomide carries your blood. The chief's eyes flickered to the boy standing beside her. Iomide looked back at him, wide-eyed, innocent, clutching his mother's hand. Something shifted in the old man's gaze, But then he clenched his jaw, the fire of pride still burning. He turned to the elders, his voice hoarse but clear. If she wishes to claim a place in my house again, let the spirits decide. Tomorrow at dawn we go before the shrine. The elders nodded gravely, some exchanging glances heavy with unspoken words. Amina's heart pounded, but she bowed her head. So be it. That night she prayed beneath the stars, her tears mixing with the dust. She asked the spirits of her ancestors, her late grandmother, even the gods of the land, for strength. Iomide slept soundly beside her, unaware of the storm awaiting them at dawn. The morning came. The village gathered, the air thick with anticipation. At the edge of the forest stood the ancient shrine, its wooden pillars carved with faces of spirits long remembered. The air was heavy with incense and the cries of birds in the canopy above. The chief was carried on a wooden stool, his body weak, his eyes shadowed with both illness and defiance. Amina walked behind him, Iomide holding tightly to her wrapper. The elders formed a circle, the diviner stepping into the center, his staff striking the ground. He spoke in chants, calling the ancestors, summoning truth to light. Cowries were cast upon the ground, their clattering echoing in the silence. The diviner's voice rose. The spirits see all. They know blood from blood, truth from lies. This child, he pointed to Aomide, if he is of the chief's line, the fire shall not touch him. If he is not, the spirits will show us. Gasps filled the air. A small fire was lit in the circle, its flames dancing high. Amina's heart thundered. The diviner motioned for Aomide to step forward. The boy hesitated, clutching his mother's hand. She knelt, pressing a kiss to his forehead, whispering, "Be strong, my son. You are never alone." Slowly, with innocent trust, Iomide walked toward the flames. The fire crackled, its heat pressing against the crowd. The diviner's chant grew louder. All eyes were fixed on the boy. And as Iomide reached out a tiny hand toward the flame, the wind shifted suddenly, the fire bending away from him, as though bowing. Gasps and cries erupted. The diviner raised his staff, his voice booming. "The spirits have spoken. The boy carries the blood of this house. He is." The chief turned to Amina, his eyes heavy with both sorrow and love. "I do not know if you can forgive me. But before I join my fathers, I wish to leave peace in this house. Stay, my daughter. Let this child know his roots." Amina's throat closed, her tears flowing again. She knelt before him, bowing her head. "Father, I forgive. For my son, for our blood, for the ancestors who watch over us." The old man's hands rested on her shoulders, trembling, blessing her. The following weeks were filled with both joy and sorrow. Joy, because the family was whole again. Sorrow, because Chief Oladipo's strength waned with each passing day. Yet in his final days, he found peace in the laughter of his grandson and the presence of the daughter he had once rejected. He taught Iomide the songs of their ancestors, whispered tales of warriors and kings, and planted within him the pride of their lineage. And when at last his breath grew thin, and the drumbeat of his heart slowed, he left this world with his hand resting gently on the boy's head, his lips whispering blessings. The village mourned him, drums echoing through the night, fires burning as the elders called his spirit to join those who came before. But in that mourning, there was also hope, for from his passing rose a story that would be told for generations, a story of pride broken, of blood remembered, of forgiveness that healed a house. Amina stood by the grave, her son's hand in hers, the wind carrying her tears away. She looked to the sky, whispering, "Rest, Father." Your blood lives on. Iomide looked up at her, his young voice soft. "Mama, will grandfather hear us?" Amina smiled through her tears, pulling him close. "Yes, my son. The spirits always hear," and as the drums faded into the night, the village knew that the curse of silence had been broken. What began with rejection ended with reunion, and though the chief's body was gone, his legacy lived on, in the strength of his daughter and in the bright eyes of the grandson who bore his blood.